Hi everyone, welcome to the Practical Gardener. I was just watering this beautiful orchid and I thought I'll take you on a quick video tour with me. This lovely orchid is called the Prosthechea Radiata. Prosthechea Radiata is also called the lined petal orchid. If you can see lines, beautiful lines on its petal. That's why the name lined petal orchid. It also has a whole bunch of other names like Encyclia radiata, Epidendrum marginatum, etc. Now this orchid genus has now been submerged into the Prosthechea genus, and Prosthechea radiata, some call it Prosthechea as well, or Prosthechea radiata is how it's best known. The Prosthechea radiata is native to Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, etc. And you can also find it in other South and Central American countries, including Florida in America. So in India, this is something that's being exported and not natively available in India. What is so special about the one that I have is I've got this orchid a couple of years back, and the first year there was just one spike. Last year I think there were about 3 or 4 spikes, and this year you won't believe that I have 9 spikes blooming on this. Okay, not all of them are blooming, some of them are budding, but 9 spikes. So if you can see here, right here I have 3. You have about a couple of them here. There's one spike here, and then there are a couple of spikes here, and a lot of new spikes coming as well. Okay, so beautiful, beautiful orchid with this lovely spikes. Now what's so special about Prosthechea radiata? In terms of blooms, their blooms are very different from other orchids. Of course, they are much smaller. They are more of the oncidium size, a little bigger than the oncidium blooms. But the other thing about them is, if you see the lip, the lip is on the top, right? They are called the non-resupinate orchids. So consider this orchid, for instance. This is a Phalaenopsis, a miniature Phalaenopsis orchid. And if you see, the lip is at the bottom. Now, in reality, this one is an upside down orchid. Okay, that is why resupinate, supine position is upwards position. Resupinate is upside down position. And if you see this one, actually it's in the right position. So that's why it's called non-resupinate orchid. So the lip is on the top. But normally most of the orchids are in resupinate position. So this seems like an aberration when the lip is on the top. So that's the difference. Now moving back to Prosthechea, it's a very fragrant orchid as well. So one, it blooms with so many spikes, and if it's happy, it kind of gives you these lovely blooms. In terms of care for the Prosthechea, they are orchids that love to, I'm hanging them, so they love to kind of grow in hanging baskets. They like to be root bound. They kind of grow out of the basket. They don't like to be very wet. What I mean by that is, while they like a lot of moisture and humidity as well, they don't like their roots to be soaking in water. So use media which is quick draining, and use media that does not soak up a lot of water. So pine bark, charcoal kind of media which can quickly dry, because if you look at their roots, the roots are quite delicate and dainty. So I can just show you the roots here. You can see these roots. So these are the Prosthechea roots. So they are quite delicate, unlike your Phalaenopsis or Dendrobium. These are more of oncidium kind of orchids, right? But they are not oncidiums. They are a different genus altogether. Okay, so this is in terms of their watering. So keep the soil loose so that the water can dry quickly, but at the same time they do like their humidity. In terms of light, these are orchids that like filtered light. They don't like direct sunlight. Of course, they can tolerate bright light, but don't give them direct sunlight, because every tendency for the leaves are quite delicate. So the leaves can burn in sun. But they do like bright light. But what I have seen most of all is these guys like circulation, air circulation, which means that they will do best for you in hanging baskets or any kind of place which is like a loose basket which lets a lot of air circulate. That's the kind of care that they like. Now fertilizing, I fertilize them like every other orchid. Just use some slow release fertilizer or feed them a weekly kind of a schedule. That is a very dilute fertilizer on a weekly basis when you're watering other plants. I don't do any special fertilization for them. Okay, so very similar to oncidiums, these orchids have a whole bunch of pseudobulbs, and if you see the pseudobulbs, and they always bloom on the new pseudobulbs. So they start off, there are a whole bunch of old pseudobulbs in the center, and you get the new ones at the side, and those are the ones that are blooming. Okay, and there are potential for a whole bunch of blooms because there are so many new pseudo. I don't know, there must be at least a good 30-40 pseudobulbs here. So this plant can kind of bloom for a while. Okay, so there is potential for a lot more spikes, and I'm seeing that new spikes are developing weekly. So if you see this one, this is a brand new spike that has come up recently in the last couple of weeks, which has taken the number of spikes right now to 9. So that's about this orchid. The advantage is that it's so fragrant. So when so many blooms are coming in together, there's a very heady fragrance in the air because of these lovely blooms. The other thing about this orchid is that the blooms last quite long. And since there are so many spikes, it's as if they are blooming almost for a year, right? I mean, these have just started blooming in the last couple of weeks. So I can see about 4 or 5 that are already spikes that are already blooming, and the rest of them are on the way. This one is getting ready to bloom in the next 1 or 2 days. The others are, the relatively smaller spikes that will slowly develop and bloom. So you will have a whole bunch of blooms at the same time, and they do last for months together. So that way, this is a very rewarding orchid, very easy to maintain orchid. So make sure, as long as you give them enough humidity, don't give them direct sun, give them bright indirect light, and give them a lot of air circulation. Do not over fertilize them. It's fine, the regular orchid fertilizer. I haven't really used a separate high blooms fertilizer for these. I've been just feeding them regular NPK or slow release fertilizer, Basacote granules. That's it. So there's no special care requirement for these. In terms of pests, I haven't seen any. They are quite maintenance free orchids, and they are very pretty as well, right? I mean, it looks like a lovely bouquet of flowers blooming, and they are quite rare. They are not your regular orchids that you find, so it might be very difficult to source them as well. This, I was able to find it from an orchid seller. So if you find something like this, do buy it, because these are quite rewarding. So I know at some point they will outgrow this. They've already outgrown this pot, but I am hesitant to repot them because they love this pot and they seem to be loving this arrangement. So I don't want to jinx something good that's going on with them. So for the last couple of years, they are in this pot and they are liking the whole pot. At some point, I will have to put them into a bigger pot for them to grow further. So that's about Prosthechea radiata, or the lined petal orchid. Beautiful non-recipienate orchid with the lip on the top when compared to other orchids where the lip is at the bottom. Okay, so, and fragrant orchid, smaller orchid, but which is quite rewarding with a lot of blooms. So if you find something like this, please grow it. And I hope you can get it and add it to your collection as well. So thanks so much for watching. Bye.